All right, so first of all, I know we have a mix of audience members here today. I want to let you know that the procedures, the rules that we're talking about really fall under just the independent living, but the skills that I'm going to talk about are applicable for all residents here. We're going to talk about the importance of this skill and why it's important to be able to get up off the floor. Various ways of doing it. There are many, many, many ways to do it. And one thing to keep in mind is if you ever end up on the floor, you only need to get up once, right? I'm going to be demoing it or showing you ways over and over and over again, but when the time comes, you really only need to be able to do it once. And I already talked about signing up for the practice opportunity, and everything I'm talking about is really regarding independent living and a non-injury fall. Or if you intentionally get on the floor for a reason and then all of a sudden you're like, uh-oh, I can't get up. So why would you end up on the floor besides a non-injury fall? Looking for a puzzle piece. Looking for something on the floor? Why would you end up on the floor? Playing games with the grandkids? Finding something under the bed, yes. So we have, you need to get something. You're cleaning, you're gardening, maybe you're playing with a pet. And if at all possible, those of you coming in, make sure you can see where I am at right now. So wherever you sit, make sure you can see where I was at. You might be engaging with a grandchild, great-grandchild, exercising, or the result of a fall, right? And we want to make sure that you have confidence in your ability to get up, right? Sometimes it's not so much the fall, but it's the fall recovery. How do you get up? You want to maintain that ability. Now, in your head, you don't have to raise a hand, but how many of you in here have had a fall? Again, you don't have to raise your hand, but I'm seeing a lot of hands. And 1 in 3 older adults has a fall, 1 to 3 to 4 older adults. So that's 25 to 33%. So if we went 1, 2, 3, you're going to have a fall. 1, 2, 3, you're going to have a fall. I mean, you can look down the line, and that's quite a few people, right? And we don't want that to happen, of course, but if you do end up on the floor and you're not hurt, if you have the ability to get yourself up, that is going to prevent you from activating your serapendant, which we're going to talk quite a bit about, or having to have 911 called and having someone come lift you. So getting up off the floor, we're going to talk about some of the things that this requires. It requires core strength, and core strength isn't just abdominal strength, it's abdominal and back strength, this whole area, because you need to be able to connect your rib cage and your hips, right? It kind of connects your upper and lower halves. And we need that ability. If you're lying on your back and you need to roll over onto your hands and knees, you need that ability. And we're going to talk about that more when we look at some of the pictures. You need lower body strength, right? So you need strength in your legs. You need balance. You need to be able to balance when you start coming back up. You need joint mobility and muscle flexibility. So you need your joints, right, to be able to move like they should. And then you need the muscle flexibility that's going to allow the range of motion to get into these positions. So if you have arthritis, that may be a limiter in your hips or your shoulders. If you have really tight hamstrings or a tight low back, that may also limit your ability. So the point in pointing all these out is you need to work on everything. It's not just one area that's going to make you better at getting up. You need to be coordinated because you're putting a lot of different things together. And then the big piece, and one thing I'm a huge proponent of, what do you think the last thing is? Somebody said don't fall. How about confidence in your ability? Attitude, it falls into the same, right? If you don't think you can, you probably can't. What did Henry Ford say? Whether you think you can or you can't, you're probably right. So think about all those things we just looked at. What are some of your challenges in getting up and down off the floor? When's the last time you did it? Some of you I know that answer to. Others, maybe it's been, I can't remember when. So practicing this skill on a regular basis, if you need it, then you know you have it. And that's important. That's really important because, typically if you end up on the floor and you can't get up, there's some anxiety that's going to kick in, right? But in your head, if you know that, hey, I did this 2 weeks ago, I know I can do this, that is going to impact your ability to actually safely do it. Okay, so confidence is something that I can help you with, right? If you have the ability. If you don't have the ability and we meet, there are things that we can look at, and if we decide, hey, you need more flexibility in your hips or you need to strengthen your legs, I can give you an exercise or two to work on that. Or, you can come to a group exercise class, or we have personal training. So there's other tools to work on those areas of deficit. So getting up off the floor, these are just images, and we're going to go over these, so don't feel like you need to memorize them, but there's many ways to get up. And the right way is the way that works for you, okay? Now, I hear about this, it seems like about once a year in AARP, they publish an article about how important it is to get up off the floor without using your hands. So that top left picture is an example of sitting in cross-legged, and she gets up without touching the floor. Somebody said she's 15 years old. All the other pictures, we're going to get into a little bit more detail. I don't really coach the first one, but we are going to talk about all these other ways. There's ways to do it without having to really use your arms and your shoulders. There's ways to do it keeping your knees up off the floor. So there's tips and tricks all the way around, and they're in the slides. So after today's presentation, when it gets posted on Touchtown, which I think the presentation from July is already on Touchtown, you can look at the slides. Okay, so if you're on the floor involuntarily and not injured, the first thing to do is stay calm, okay? Take a few deep breaths, because I can tell you what, your heart rate just spiked if you ended up on the floor involuntarily. You didn't mean to end up on the floor, but you're there. There might be some anxiety, your heart rate increased, maybe your blood pressure increased. So the first thing you're going to do, you're going to rest, you're going to assess, and then you're going to reassess. And you know what? It's going to take you a few minutes to do this. And during that time, the adrenaline that was released during your fall is going to have a chance to kind of dissipate. You don't want to bounce right up right away, because you don't know. You might have an injury to a hip, an ankle, a collarbone. You don't know. So if you do end up on the floor involuntarily, sit, take a few deep breaths, and then either start at your head or start at your toes. Wiggle your toes. Move both ankles. Move your knees. Wiggle your hips around a little bit. Okay? Move your back. Forward, back, and around. Wiggle your wrists. Maybe touch your collarbone. Circle your head around a little bit. Kind of do this head to toe check. I had a gal fall at one of my communities, and I saw it happen, and it's what I call a soft fall. It wasn't a very hard fall. And she wanted to get up right away. And I was like, no, let's just sit on the floor. I sat on the floor with her. We backed up to a cabinet. It was at the elevator, and she was rushing to catch the elevator. Nobody does that. And she kind of got bumped into, and that caused her to fall. And anyway, we started with the toes, went the ankles. As soon as she moved her leg, she grabbed at her hip. and she actually ended up having a broken hip. And so if she would have tried to roll over to her hands and knees, it could have caused even more damage. So I cannot emphasize enough the importance of doing that assessment and taking that time, because you don't want to do more damage. Hopefully, nothing's wrong, okay? But you need to take that time. It's very, very important. And then, like I just said, at any point during this process, if you have pain, the best thing to do is stop. Press your Sarah pendant, ask your friend to go get some help, and we're going to talk about what that looks like. But you don't want to keep going, okay, because you don't want to do further damage. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and talk about if you end up on your back and you roll over onto your side, how do you go from that picture on the far left to getting up and standing? So we're going to break this down. So first of all, in this instance, you need to have the shoulder strength to be able to push up onto that elbow. Okay? And you need core strength to lift your hips up and over to get to your hands and knees. You can't, I've had people who can't get to their hands and knees. They can get up once they're on their hands and knees, but they couldn't get from lying on their side to being on their hands and knees because they just did not have the core strength to do that. Okay, so that is important. So we just touched base on that, needing that core strength to spin around and be on all fours. And then, so I'm going to, let's see, it looks like I start talking about points of contact here. So the amount of contact that we have on the floor increases your stability, right? That's what an assistive device does for us. It adds more points of contact. So when I'm on my hands and knees, I have 4 points of contact, 2 hands, 2 knees. That makes sense to everybody? Am I doing the math right? All right, so once we get to our hands and knees, we need to be able to bring 1 foot forward. If we look at this red circle, we need hip mobility, right? To be able to go from having that knee back to now bringing that foot forward in front of us. We need the flexibility in the hip and the ankle to get there. We need the core strength to kind of hold us up in that position. And then as we start to stand, we need balance. Because in this second picture, as the person begins to lift their knee up, now I only have 3 points of contact, right? My points of contact are lessening as I come up to standing. So I'm going to set the mic down for a moment. I know it's needed for the recording. So when we go from hands and knees to bring this leg forward, I need the mobility in my hip. And I can bring my foot around, but I still need the ability to bring that leg around, right? And then as I come up, I've got this foot down, this knee down, and that back toe down. As I come up, I still have my toe down, my front foot, and my hands, so I still have 3 points of contact. From here, what I teach people is pivot and then get up. Okay? Much, much easier than bringing that back foot up. Okay, so regardless, even if this foot doesn't come all the way, like I said, when you do this, you only have to do it once. So even if this foot doesn't come all the way up, maybe it only goes that far. I tuck that back toe under, I leave both of my hands down, I can start to push myself back, and I'm here. And then I can come in. Question?
Yes. So let's say you have one side considerably weaker than the other one. Which knee do you want to bring forward?
So the question is, if you have one side that's considerably weaker than the other, which knee do you want to bring forward? Your strongest leg. Because that is the leg here that's going to be doing most of the work. And again, if we do a practice session, or if you move forward with, say you decide to use points and do personal training, I can show you how to do that practice lunging with whatever depth you have available to you. That's, some of the great things about the services that we have here. We can really individualize. But yes, you want your stronger leg forward. And as you see through this process, obviously when you start to bring the hands up from the floor, you go from 4 points to 3 points to 2 points of contact. And once you're back up, you've got your 2 points of contact. Now, if you have a table or a chair, that gives you another point of contact. And I'm going to demo those in a moment too. Lots of demonstration today. Yes?
I appreciate the pivot because I've struggled to get that foot.
So Jay was commenting that she appreciates the pivot, not feeling like that you have to bring this foot forward or slowly bring it up. But once you're in that position, you just kind of get that back heel down and then you can come up. Yeah, I learned that from one of my gentlemen I worked with years ago that was about 6'5". So he had extremely long legs and not very flexible. And that's how we found that worked for him. Okay, so getting up with painful knees. A lot of times people are afraid to get on their knees, or you've had knee replacements. Of course, if you've been told not to get on your knees, you probably don't want to do it. But if you've had knee replacements and you're just scared to get on your knees, that's different. And keep in mind, if you need to get up, you only have to kneel on them once. And if that gets you safely up off the floor, it's not a bad thing to do. I'm going to go ahead and set the mic down again. For my knees. So if you end up on the floor and you don't want to put your knees down, it's even going to take more upper body strength. Okay? Because what you're going to have to do is roll over without putting your knees down. Now this takes a lot of core strength right here, and then you need to walk yourself back. What I suggest and what I have found that most people can do, as long as they have padding to put under their knees, they're gonna be okay. So if somebody, for example, has a fall outside, knock on wood, this has not happened, but if I needed to and I'm with somebody outside and they can get up, I'd take off my coat and roll it up, put it under their knees. Think about what you have handy and available. But again, this takes a lot of core strength. If you've ever been on your hands and knees, try to just hover your knees up off the floor. That is actually a core exercise in itself. And you need to have the wrist strength to be able to do that, which is another good reason to make sure you do that assessment, making sure if you're going to have to do this, that your wrists are okay to do that. Okay, so more demonstration time. Getting up using a chair. So the other options that we were looking at, we didn't have other objects in front of us. I'm going to continue to use a pad because I find this floor very hard. So, placing a cushion under the knees if we can. I'll read through this first. And then we want to bring one foot forward, putting the foot flat on the floor, if at all possible. Should be your strong leg, to answer your question. Putting both hands on the chair and pushing down, not pulling yourself up. I'll demonstrate that in a moment. And then turn your body to rest, and then you're going to rest and reassess again. So we went from being on the floor, and then we're going to get to our hands and knees. I can pull an object to me. Hands can go here or here. You're going to bring your foot flat on the floor, preferably, like not just on the toe. You want it flat, and you're going to push down into the chair, because if I try to pull myself up, that's not going to work. Okay? So I'm actually using my back toe to push myself forward a little bit as I push down, and I only need to come up high enough to get my butt on the chair. I'll demonstrate from both sides, but so you can see, I just need to be able to slide in. And I'm going to change legs so the folks on the other side of the room can see. So I can get nice and close, come up, and I just need to be able to get that cheek on the chair. Of course, you could also stand all the way up and then work your way. But keep in mind, the changing of positions from lying to seated to standing, you're going to have a change in blood pressure every time you go through one of those changes, which that's why I kind of like sliding into the chair right away and just kind of taking a break. Any questions about this piece? Do your best not to pull yourself up unless it's a grab bar meant for that purpose, right? Most other things are going to move. And you'll see she's got her hands nice and flat on that chair. Now, I have so many pictures because the slides are meant to actually be a handout for you to refer back to also. Again, they're on Touchtown. And you can see in this picture, she just got herself up high enough to slide that hip into the chair. So just to reiterate that, if I'm close, and you can see, even if I turn this way, so I'm perpendicular to the chair, it's even less. But again, I have to have the flexibility to twist my legs like a pretzel, but you can see how easy it was to get my hip. So maybe this foot's out here. Again, there's recommended ways, and then there's a way you're gonna do it. And again, you only have to do it once, just pushing yourself over, depending on the height of the chair, okay? And that's where if I go into your apartment, because we've talked about this in prior presentations, 60% of falls will occur in your home. So let's look at your home environment, see how it's set up, see if you've got a chair that, hey, if you fall and can scoot over to that, this is how you would do it. Okay, so this was a handout that I got from Providence years ago. The thing I like about this is I just wanted to really point out the knee position. When you roll over onto your side, you want that top knee to be forward of your bottom knee. This can be really key, and again, I'll pull the chair back and demonstrate. When you are on your side and you bring yourself up, that top knee, get it over. So when you go to roll, it's in position. That's why it's important that it is in front versus being behind, because now I've got to bring it around if you start to bring it, you start with that foot in front a little bit. When you come over, you're already in position. And these are just little things to make it easier if it happens. Okay, so this is the one I can't really demonstrate, but if you fall and you can't use your arms that well, if you scoot back to your couch, and in this, I love this image because I think it's a leather or vinyl couch, so it makes the whole drill a lot easier, but you scoot your butt back to it, and then you kind of put your arms out in a T, and then you get yourself up, and then you scoot yourself back. Nobody said it was going to be easy. Might take you about 20 minutes to get this far, and you're exhausted. And then you got to crawl your feet over, get them up on the couch. Then you got to get off the couch. It would take a lot of effort to do that, but it's a way that you could do it without having to use your arms and hands. And I can tell you one of the tricks that we're going to talk about more in a few moments is take the cushions off the couch. Now the couch is lower. It's even going to be easier to get to. So that's one of the tricks. Take the cushions off of the couch. Number one, you can use them for your knees. Number two, you could scoot your butt up to the cushion and then scoot your butt up to the cushionless couch. But now you're sitting in a low couch that you have to get up out of, but you're no longer on the floor. Any questions about that? I'm going to get a quick drink. All right, so this is where you're going to get tired. How to move when you can't get up. You fell in the bedroom. You're not hurt. There's nothing you can use to get up, so you need to get to the living room somehow. Okay? You're either going to use the glute scoot or the sideways inchworm. They sound like line dances, don't they? So the glute scoot, I'll demonstrate in a moment. You're basically just using your legs and kind of scooting back. We do it every time we sit down. If you sit towards the front edge of your chair, you glute scoot back. Okay, I'll demonstrate the same thing on the floor in just a moment. And then the other one is with bent knees, you're kind of inchworming yourself back. So I'll demonstrate. Unless I have any volunteers. No? All right. So glute scoot, if you're here, you're just using, guess what this takes? A lot of core strength, right? So everyone scoot to the front edge of your chair, because you can do it seated. Yeah, don't fall off the edge of the chair. Now from there, just think about wiggling your sit bones back. So that's all you're doing on the floor. And so that is also a way to practice a little bit with your core strength. Okay? The glute scoot. Now the inchworm, let's see. So it's a little bit more of this, right?
Then you have to get over.
I know. All we're doing now is maybe getting to your call button or the phone or that chair that's the right height to get up. Okay? But, and sometimes you're doing this. If you are there and you are determined, you will find a way. You will find a way. But you need to be able to scoot. All right, so we've already, again, this is just another handout, going from your knees, bringing yourself up. And if you look down in the lower left, instead of just sliding the hip onto the chair, she actually stood up but has both hands on the chair in case she's lightheaded, and then slowly turned to sit. This image, if we look at the second row, so she scooted over to the couch. The middle picture, she takes the cushion off of the couch, scoots her butt back on the couch, and then she can scoot into the cushionless couch, right? So that's how we made that chair lower and easier to get into. Any questions about any of those slides that you've seen to this point? Because we're going to shift gears and get into a little bit about the Sarah pendant. Yes? Yes?
How do you get your legs up in order to push yourself into the chair?
So how do you get your legs up? So she has shoes on, which is good. If she just had socks on, I would say take the socks off. But she has the shoes on, and she's able to have her feet just in front of the cushion. Yes. Yeah, because if you put them on the cushion, it might push it away. You might need to turn it in a way that it's a little bit shorter, and it may or may not work for the width of cushion you have. You might need to, maybe you grab some throw pillows off of the other couch. You know what I mean? You find a way to make it work. But in this image, she was able to keep her feet, if we look at number 8, in front of the cushion. Good question, though, because if you put them on the cushion and then you lift your butt up off the cushion, it's probably just going to kick out from underneath you. But then part way up, she's probably had to crawl her feet up onto it. Yes?
Yeah, I'm thinking out loud.
That's okay.
Another way to do that, couldn't you crawl all the way up on your hands and knees and then push up like you would off of a regular chair if that's easier?
So yeah, the comment is, couldn't you just crawl up on it on your hands and knees if that's easier? Absolutely. I think the whole point is just understand if you pull that cushion off, your couch is now lower and easier to get to. Whether you crawl into it, slide into it, roll onto it. Yes?
What picture should you be doing your assessment?
In what picture should you be doing your assessment? Number 1. I would start it there. And then once you sit up, maybe scoot back against the couch and take another moment. But you want to start it when you're on your back. Joyce, time check. Okay. So getting into the Sarah pendant. Any other questions? I don't want to rush through this if you do have things to say. Again, this is just to give you some general ideas. I'm not saying it has to be exactly like this. You're just getting the idea, hey, I can take the couch cushion off. Oh, I can scoot on my butt. I can crawl on my hands and knees. I can inchworm. I can get up. All right, Sarah pendant. Anyone know what Sarah stands for? Situational something. What's the A stand for? I heard assistant. I heard alert. Awareness. And response. Assistant. Situational awareness and response assistant. That's what the SARA acronym stands for. Where is it? Next to your bed? Who doesn't know where it is? Find it.
We've been trying.
So it is key to know where your Sarah pendant is. Some people wear them. Great. If you don't know where it is, or you have it on top of your refrigerator or in a drawer, I highly recommend that you think about putting it somewhere that if you fell, how are you going to use it? Exactly. Good point. Yeah, how are you going to get it? If it's on top of the refrigerator and you fell on the floor, how are you going to activate it? You know, have it at on your bedstand, nightstand table. Hang it on the back of a door somewhere, the front of your closet.
How about opening the refrigerator and having a stack to strengthen you? And then you could get up and get your Sarah button.
Okay, that is not in my presentation. The suggestion was, before you fall, make sure and have a snack. So you have the strength to take care of all this. I kind of summarized. But I just can't emphasize enough. Know where your Sarah pendant is. Have it in an area that if you fall, you can access it. Where that is for you is up to you. You know where you spend the most time. Okay? You could have two, yes. How do you know if it's been activated? Who in here has activated a Sarah pendant? I have one somewhere. I'm not going to activate it. But your Sarah pendant looks like this. Yes.
We tried all over to get it activated, and nobody could tell me where.
Okay, she said she tried all over to get it activated and nobody could tell you where. If you don't do this, don't cry wolf. If you press that center button, you will feel a slight vibration and the light will start blinking red. Right now, there is no light. Okay, there'll be a slight vibration. You have to press these fairly hard. Okay? Then it is activated when it is blinking red. Then, dun, 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 what's going to happen? It's been activated. A notification will be sent to the front desk, the executive director, the assisted living nurse, and maintenance personnel on duty. Those are all the people that are going to get an alert. Typically, the first people to respond are the maintenance team. Okay? They're going to typically respond the fastest. What it's going to tell the responders and the people in bullet point number 1, your name, your apartment, your general location in the building, or, you know, if it's Cove East, Cove West. It also works on the perimeter outside of the buildings. But that's the information that's going to be relayed. So just think about this as data. Those people, front desk, I'm just going to say the response team is going to get that data. That's all they know right now. Who, what, where. So what happens next? So if it says, based on the locator, that you're in your apartment, they will call you. If you don't answer, then maintenance or the AL nurse will respond. Okay? What I want you to understand, this is the process, so there is going to be a slight delay, right? If you push your button, you're in your apartment, somebody's not going to come running right away. They're going to call you first. There is no difference in pushing the button, I'm on the floor and I can't get up, versus I think I'm having a stroke. Activating the Sarah pendant does not indicate a level of emergency. So, if you're in your apartment, the first thing they're going to do is call you. If you don't answer, then somebody will come. Because that's indicating that you are unable to get to the phone, but you are in your apartment. So that just notched up the level of response. Any questions on that? Yes, Jay? you would answer the phone if they call you. Then you can relay information as to the severity of the situation. Because maybe you say, I think I'm having a stroke, call 911. Or you say, I got down on the floor to get something from under the bed, now I can't get up. There's a big difference. Good question, though. All right, if the location indicates that you're not in the apartment, they're not going to make a phone call because there's nowhere to call, right? You're not in your apartment. They are not going to call you in your apartment if you're not there. They're just going to respond to where it indicates you are. Does that difference make sense? They're not going to call your apartment because they know you're not there. You're somewhere else in the building. Yes. If you push, don't do it. We don't want to cry wolf. But if I pressed my Sarah pendant here, well, I can't use me as an example. I don't have an apartment. No, do not press your button. If Jay had her button with her and she pressed it, they would respond here. They are not going to call her apartment because they know she's here based on the locators that are in here. Yes?
What if you see somebody fall?
So what if we see somebody fall? So Jay and Madeline are together. Jay has her button, Madeline does not. Madeline falls on the lower level. Jay presses Jay's button. They will respond to the lower level. That's what matters. It doesn't matter at that point who it belongs to. If Jay and Madeline are in Madeline's apartment, Madeline falls, doesn't know where her pendant is, Jay presses her pendant, they know by location that she's in Madeline's apartment. So if you are with someone who has their pendant and you don't, if they press theirs, it is beneficial. And that's what you would want to do. Does that answer your question? Good, thank you, yes.
How accurately does it be able to tell where you are, which floor you're on, which room in a given floor, and so on?
So how accurately? I am not an expert in regards to that. I understand that it will indicate the general area in the lower level, but it might not say the ping pong table area versus the resident engagement office, right? So there could be a little variance, but it's in the area, the general area. I will try to get a better answer for that and get back to you.
What I'm thinking is if you're in somebody else's apartment, are they gonna have to check every apartment on that floor, or?
No, it's more specific than that, but I don't know if it's gonna be specific. It might be one apartment off, I don't know. But regardless, they knock on the next door and then they come to, it's not gonna be that far off. It's not gonna delay them by that much. But valid question, valid question. But it's better than no activation at all. But we're gonna talk about we're gonna keep going a little deeper into this because I think it's really important that you all understand how the Sarah pendants work. And part of my philosophy is I want you to know this stuff so you never have to use it. But because you have the knowledge, you don't need it. You know, it's kind of like learning CPR, right? We take CPR for years and years and years and cross our fingers we never have to use it. So we become over-prepared and then not need it. All right, so key points about Sarah pendants. They do not call 911. It notifies our in-house response team who will come and assess the situation, and at that point, they in turn may call 911. If you are certain, maybe to your point, that it is a medical emergency, call 911 yourself and push the button. Because that's gonna get 911 coming, and it will get our in-house team responding.
Does everybody know who comes when you push
Can you ask that question one more time? Who comes when you press 911 or when you call 911? So who comes when you call 911? Fire department comes first, then the medics. So again, they're coming in, they're making an assessment, and then if needed, they bring in the medics. Is that the point you wanted to make? Okay. Everyone thoroughly confused? Any questions? I hope you know a little bit more about that process than you did when you came in. And we're not done yet. Yes, Jim?
I would imagine that some of the accidents occurred in the bathtub area, in the bathroom. My question is there a button waterproof to wear it?
So his comment was, you know, the bathroom is a place where many accidents can happen. Are the Sarah pendants waterproof? Yes. Question, Susan. Okay, no, yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but once you have used your Sarah button, it has to be reset before it can use again. Is that correct?
So the question is, once you activate your Sarah button, it has to be reset before you can use it again. The answer is yes. That red light will continue to flash until somebody comes to reset it. So it has to be reset for it then to be a tool again to use. Yes.
If it's the middle of the night, there's some way that the door has to be open for them to get in. And if maintenance isn't free right then, and they're coming up to you instead of over, how does the door get open?
So how does the door get open? A master key. Hallie? Master key, if it's not maintenance.
Are we talking about Woodlawn?
We're talking about this main building. If they're trying to get into a resident apartment who has pushed a Sarah button and cannot answer their door.
We have tons of master keys at the front desk.
They have master keys at the front desk. So
Outside door.
Woodlawn, yep. So the camera will pick it up, and we have 24-hour monitoring. They'll come open that door.
So they'll come open the door on Woodlawn.
Repeat what she said.
I know, just hang on just a second, Laura. So repeat your question.
How does the fireman or EMT get into the building?
Gotcha. Sorry, I thought you meant how did we get into your apartment? How does fire or EMT get in? So when our in-house team is notified, somebody goes to that door to let them in, and or the camera the front desk knows they are coming because they called them and they let them in. So that brings up a really good point, because I see some skepticism. That's okay. So if you call 911 and do not let the front desk know, they do not know to expect them. So if you call 911, press your Sarah pendant or to call the front desk so they know they are coming and they can be prepared to let them in and set aside an elevator and do all the processes that need to happen. Yes.
It's always best to do what Lisa just said, but worst case scenario, 911 will always use a Knox box. So they'll access any building, anytime, no problem.
So she said 911 can get into the building?
That's right. I'll do.
Even if we don't let them in, they have a way to get in.
But then how do they know where to go?
That's why you need to let the front desk know that you've called 911. Or if you activate your pendant, it is the in-house response team doing the notifying, and then they can do the directing. And then it's a concerted effort. No, all very good questions. All very good questions. Yes, Bev, I'm going to go to Bev first.
People should be aware that their door can be closed, but not double locked. That's right. That prevents the team from getting in easily.
So Bev wanted to point out that if your door is double locked, it makes it harder for the team to get in. But if it's just single locked,
If it's just closed, which they lock when they close.
if it's just closed, they can get in easier. So it's versus having the deadbolt thrown.
Yeah. Well, it's turned over.
Yeah. But again, like Hallie said, master keys, they can get in. Hang on, Susan, did you have another question?
This is probably for Helen. Is the Knox box on the front door or off the Woodlawn?
We don't, that's not up to us. The fire department will move it as they see fit, and that's for their knowledge. So that's not for anybody but the fire department.
So the NOS box, the fire department is in control of that.
When the fire marshal comes out, he checks it every year.
So when the fire marshal comes out, they check that every year.
If I was calling, I'd say there's a Knox box at the front door.
Got it. Got it. You have more experience than some. One moment, Jay.
I was impressed that a guy came to put a new battery in my Sarah button, because he said, we know all the ones that are working well. If they're not working well, we go make sure we get them.
And so that's a good point, and I think it might be in here later. It's like, how do you know when the battery needs to be replaced? Maintenance monitors that. They went to her apartment to change the battery. She had no idea it needed done. They just knew because they monitor that. Okay? And yes.
Since the telephones have been worked on, there's a lot of confusion about how to get the front desk. Can you just dial 0, or do you dial 1, 2, 3, or?
So the question is, how do you dial the front desk? 1, 2, 3.
And dialing 0 will not get them.
Correct. And if you need to dial 911, you just pick up and dial 911. So front desk is 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we will go through this. We won't take too much more time, but I love this. This is what I want this to be, is you asking questions about things that you want clarity on. But I often get asked, should I help somebody who has fallen? Usually not a good idea, either for them or for you. What you can do is all these tips and tricks you just learned, you can share them with that individual. Ask them, when's the last time you got up off the floor? If they say, it's been about a year, you might want to push the Sarah pendant or get a hold of staff, pull the emergency call boxes, which we'll talk about in a moment too. But if you start to help somebody up and you're pulling on their arm and they start to fall back again, guess where you're going? You're going with them. And now you're both on the floor. Okay? Or you start helping them and you wrench your back. Use the knowledge that you gained today. Keep them calm. Give them the tools that we've just talked about today, if they can get up on their own. And if they can't, activate the process that'll safely get them up off the floor. Okay? I know it's a difficult situation because when someone's on the floor, they don't want to be there anymore. They just want to get up. They don't want to be the center of attention. And if we can just keep them calm, bring them the tools if they can get up, and if not, hang out with them, send somebody else off to activate a pendant or get some help. Or just call the front desk, right? What are we going to call for the front desk? 1, 2, 3. Good question, though, because it changed. And then we've talked about this also. You should notify your physician if you've had a fall. And technically, the definition of a fall is the unintentional descent from a higher elevation to a lower elevation. I just fell into my chair. That technically is a fall. It's an uncontrolled descent. It does not have to be to the floor. Okay? But if you're reporting it to your physician, typically it is going to be to the floor. You're not going to tell them every time you plop in a chair. It's important to let them know if you have a fall. It could be a medication issue. It could be a change in a medical condition. It could be dehydration. It could be nothing. Let them make the decision. We're not doctors. I don't think anyone in here is. Might be. Is there one? Okay. I'm seeing some fingers. So we have a doctor. But it could be a signal that something is going on. Okay? Maybe you just send them an email through my chart, right? It doesn't have to be like a urgent phone call, but let them know. They may decide they want to see you for something, maybe they don't. Often what happens, say there's a change in your blood pressure medication. Okay, if you're taking medication for high blood pressure, maybe they altered it to where when you stood up, your blood pressure dropped too much, and that's why you ended up on the floor. Maybe that needs to be addressed, or they need to track it. And I think we discovered in prior presentations that 50% of people do not tell their physicians if they've had a fall, which is pretty high. Also, you're at higher risk of having a second fall if you've had a fall. And there may be there may be something going on inside your body that is not evident right away. If you hit your head, yes, you activate our emergency inside system. You let your doctor know. You never know when there could be a brain bleed that is just not evident right away. There could be internal bleeding or a fracture that doesn't become evident until later, until more weight is put on it. Yes?
I have Kaiser as my medical, and I asked for a balance assessment. Could you do a balance assessment here?
So the question is, they have Kaiser, Jay has Kaiser insurance, and she is wondering and she requested a balance assessment, and could I do that? The answer is no, I am not therapy. Our therapy team here is Consanus Age Strong, and unfortunately they do not take Kaiser insurance. So Kaiser would probably need to go to a Kaiser provider, but most other insurance, you need to check with Age Strong, are accepted here. And yes, you can request a balance assessment. Hey, I'm worried about my balance. I don't feel as steady as I used to be. Can I get a balance assessment? Here's the therapy information. They can just fax it over. Yes, Jay?
I recently was at a doctor's and I got up and I was dizzy. You need to center yourself so you feel that.
So his comment was he was recently at the doctor and he got up from the chair and was kind of dizzy. And, you know, it might happen today because you've been sitting for an hour, right? So when you go to get up from this presentation, please stand up, take your time, let your blood redistribute before you go on your merry way. Just a reminder, all the things we talked about in the beginning, you know, getting up from the floor and fall recovery, it's complex. It's not simple, but it is doable, right? And I want you to be able to do it. And I don't care what your age is, that has nothing to do with it. After our presentation that we did on this in July, the first person I did an in-home visit with to help practice get up off the floor was 95, and he got right up. So even surprised me. And he uses an assistive device. So it doesn't matter, you know? Any other questions? There is that sign-up sheet at the back of the room in a moment. It's right here. I'll put it in the back of the room. If you want to sign up for a Get Up Off the Floor session with me, put your name and apartment number down. I will reach out to you. I am going on vacation Wednesday, so it may be a few weeks before I get back to you, but I will call you to set up a time, even if we just talk. We might just talk about where you're at, okay? So I'll hang out here for a few minutes too after I take this to the back and answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Great job.